Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to The Breakfast Show here on Sky News. Happy New Year to you. Last year was the hottest year on record. Longer than that, 125,000 years since it was as hot as it was last year. Who's responsible? Well, Zoe is with us, as is James. Zoe, you will recognise. James has been on the programme previously as well. Whose fault is it, Zoe?
It's the global elite, isn't it? It's those in positions of power across governments, oil companies, media barons, banks, those who have persisted with the destruction of nature and with continuing with fossil fuel expansion year after year when we have known unequivocally that it was going to drive what's happening now. Disaster. We're seeing it daily on our news screens, if you look. The catastrophe is fatal, and those people in power are not being held to account.
Well, I'm a bit mystified about the idea of global elites 125,000 years ago. I think the willingness to find blame or assign blame to people who've long been in their graves is a little bit odd. I wonder how the measurements are made of temperature 125,000 years ago. How can one be sure that what is touted as the hottest period since God knows when really is that? It's very difficult to believe that the statistics adduced about global temperatures so long ago are really credible.
Kate, what I have to say to you, your audience, and to the people upstairs who are in your ear, the executives and the people in power in Sky, is I cannot believe that you're platforming this gentleman. He makes his living from working for Talk TV, GB News, and writing for a publication called Spiked.
I'm retired, actually, but never mind.
I've done my research, James, and I know that you write for Spike, you perform on GB News. All of these channels are funded by oil interests, by the likes of the Koch brothers. They're oil barons, they're oil billionaires. So I'm sure you're a nice guy, James. I know you have.
No need to patronise.
I'm sure I know you have grandchildren. I'm sure you care about them and their future.
You've investigated my family. That's
no,
very
I've
kind.
seen on your social media you have young children.
I see, and that's relevant, is it?
Well, we all care about our families, don't we? But what I'm seeing here is Sky that claims to actually be one of the leaders in talking about the climate reality is actually platforming someone who makes their living out of writing for these platforms that are fundamentally funded by climate denial and oil interests.
Spike doesn't pay, so I'm not funded by them.
Well, I'm not going to argue with it. The point is, if I drop this glass, which I'm not going to do because I'm non-violent and I don't like breaking things, if I drop this, it will break. That's gravity, isn't it? Like, denying that putting more carbon in the atmosphere causes global heating is absolutely insane. We know that. We've known it for 150 years. It's unequivocal. We know that the people in power know full well that what they are doing will drive mass death, and yet they are still doing it. And that, under the Rome Statute, international criminal law, is genocide by oblique intent. We know that. It's been known for years. They know what they're doing, Kay.
OK. I'm sure you want to come back, James.
Well, I'm surprised my colleague here is on a platform with somebody who's genocidal. That's a new charge.
I didn't say you were genocidal,
no,
James, did I? I said
sure
those in
not.
positions of power licensing new oil and gas when they know
James come in.
that will do.
Well, I return to the question, how do you measure temperatures 125,000 years ago? What makes you so confident that you're right about the world being hotter now than it was then?
I'm not even going to dignify that with an actual response.
How do you measure those temperatures so long ago?
Peer-reviewed climate science. If I'm not wrong, you have no climate science credentials whatsoever.
Well, I wasn't on the audit commission, it's true, but I have a physics degree, so please don't patronise me anymore.
What Sky need to be doing is getting world-renowned climate scientists on this sofa.
But you knew he was
people
coming,
like
and you
Dr.
agreed to
James
come.
Hansen.
Sorry, you did know he was coming.
I did, because I need to
And
call
you did
out.
agree to
I need
come.
to call out the fact that Sky are platforming people who make their money for writing for publications like Spiked. That is insane.
I have no income.
That is insane. What would it look like if Sky actually behaved like the truth is real? Whose side is this organisation on? Are you just about clicks and profit, or are you actually trying to help civilians, help citizens?
We do invite you on quite often, Zoe. But do you want to talk to us about why
actually,
you think
well,
the planet is hotter now than it has been, certainly in our lifetimes, and certainly it does look as though it's increasingly getting warmer to the extent where we may find ourselves, Zoe would say, definitely find ourselves in a position where it's not sustainable.
I think, Kay, you may have my 575-page book on energy. And in that book, we suggest, because I had a co-author, that temperatures measured over centuries, which is what the sedimental record to do with lakes, to do with earth, to do with sea, to do with glacial ice, if you do use those proxies for temperatures 125,000 years ago, it's an entirely different procedure than quoting temperatures in the last 150 years, which I agree have risen. I don't deny global warming. It's all in my book. I'm very hostile to skeptics about global warming. But the fact is that you're measuring apples with pears when you're comparing the sedimentary record of 125,000 years ago, which is sampled every few centuries by scientists, to what's taken every a few weeks about global temperatures today. It's an entirely different procedure. And if you look at the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change itself, it's very clear that the level of error surrounding data, particularly old data, is way bigger than what is claimed as the big increase in temperatures from thousands of years ago. One must understand just what the error ranges are, how the measurements are made, whether one can compare the sedimentary record with the instrumental record. They're quite different. Now, as I said, I believe that industrialization in this last century has raised the temperature of the Earth. It'd be very strange if it hadn't. That's one thing. To suggest that anybody who differs from that is basically bordering on genocidal is the way we debate matters now. It's not scientific, it's to do with emotions. And that really won't suffice if we want a way forward to deal with global warming.
I'm almost lost for words, Kate, to be honest, that this misinformation's being platformed. But it is not about emotion, it's about very hard data. Like I said, if I drop that, it'll break because of gravity, right? This guy's literally denying facts that are clear as the nose on our face. Like, ask insurers, ask the actuaries that work for insurance companies, right? 1 in 6 properties in England right now are at risk of flooding. Insurance premiums are going up and up and up. People around the world are unable to get insurance. You know, what's it going to take? Maybe when James can't get insurance for his own house, he might start taking this a little bit more seriously. Insurance companies aren't emotional women, whatever this nonsense that's going on right here. Actually, they're hard-nosed people that look at the facts and they know exactly what's happening. That's why insurance premiums are going up and up and up. Like, I am literally almost lost for words. It couldn't be clearer. No one is coming to save us. And if Sky was actually acting like the truth was real, you would take over this whole programme to inform your audience of the risk that their families face and how you need to come together in peaceful civil resistance to drive real change. Those in power don't give a flying shit about us. They don't.
Think we can say that.
Well, I just said it, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But they don't. They don't care. It couldn't be clearer. Come together in peaceful resistance and drive real change.
I think one must distinguish between floods, which are also to do with flood defences, and the level
yeah, which the government's also failing on, James. They're failing to protect us at every level.
I'd appreciate being allowed to finish a sentence. I didn't interrupt you. When we're looking at floods, it's quite important to understand that the devastation caused by floods is not just to do with rainfall, it's to do with flood defences. In Britain, we like sandbags. In Sweden and the Nordic countries, they prefer plastic barriers to defend themselves against floods. So I've written about floods in Britain. I'm very concerned, especially for small businesses, which are routed by floods regularly in Britain. That's a very big issue, and one trivialises it to reduce it to climate change. It's also to do with the extent of local authority and national preparation for serious bouts of rainfall. Otherwise, we would say that Pakistan was flooded just by natural causes, that it had nothing to do with the corruption of the Pakistani ruling class, had nothing to do with their siphoning off money to go to Dubai. No, it was all just a natural disaster. That's not true. It's to do with the level of resources that the regime can mobilize to deal with natural disasters. And generally that level of resources has improved over the past century. We're much more capable of dealing with hurricanes, with floods and so on than we ever were. So it's important to distinguish things and to discriminate between different phenomena. Some are artificial, some are natural. We make the difference most of the time, and that's what we need to remember.
We're out of time.
Thank
you both
we
for
make
taking.
the difference. We have to come together and
Thank you for taking the time, both of you, for coming in again. I really do appreciate it. And it's my first day back, and you've already got me in trouble for using swear words. So sorry about that, everybody. Let's find out about gorillas in our midst in Rwanda.